Hello and welcome to Office Hours, where I answer your questions about weight and weight medicine. I'm Dr. Meghan. I'm a board-certified physician in internal medicine, lifestyle medicine, and obesity medicine. And this is really important because I actually prescribe these medications all the time. I actually talk to patients about their weight all the time. I've helped hundreds of patients lose weight, and I'm here to help you too. So if you're confused about your weight, if you have questions about weight medicines, and if you want medically based, fact-based answers to your weight questions, you are in the right place. As always, as a caveat, I can't answer personal medical questions because I'm not your personal doctor. So if your question does lean a little personal, I'm going to change it slightly so it's more broadly educationally applicable. And let's dive in. First question, what are your thoughts on a patient who is losing weight on 2.5 milligrams, I'm guessing this is Zepbound, but moved up to 5 because it was week 5 and that's what you're supposed to do? Do you think it would be more harmful that person to go back to using the 2.5 after a month? I guess my question is more about whether or not this medication will still work if you go down in dosing instead of up. Great question. All right, so it's not going to be harmful if somebody goes down. I think if I have a patient like this, it really depends on how fast they are losing weight. So a lot of times if people are losing weight, but maybe it's slowed down a little bit, or it's, a pound a month, it's perfectly fine to go, for me, I feel like it's usually perfectly fine to go up to the 5 if they're tolerating everything well. But I think it's equally also perfectly fine if that patient wanted to stay on it for another month to see what happens. For me, I don't feel like there's a rush. There is some evidence to suggest that, of course, when people lose weight faster, sometimes it's easier for them to be consistent or easier to, have long-term results. But also there is something to be said for slower weight loss in terms of letting your body adjust, potentially decreasing the risk of gallstones, hair loss, things like that. So of course, like all things, it's very patient dependent. But the question here is something is it still gonna work if somebody goes down? And the real answer is, if I had a patient like this who had increased their dose and then wanted to go back down, I wouldn't really know until I tried it for them, because they may not have plateaued on that 2.5 before I moved them up. So if they went back down, they may still lose more weight. They may actually lose quite a bit more weight on the 5. And so if I brought them back down to the 2.5, there's a chance they could gain a few pounds. Bottom line is, if I had a patient like that and they wanted to go back down, we could try it out and they may still lose more weight. I wouldn't know until I tried it for them. Their weight may plateau, they may gain a few pounds. So hard to say after a month, but in general, there's no harm in decreasing the dose. What a great question. Thank you so much for that. Next question. I have lost 76 pounds on Mounjaro. Oh, congrats. So Mounjaro worked great for me, but it abruptly stopped over a year ago. I know you say people reach a set point and will stop losing, but how do others seem to not have a set point weight and keep on losing? I've upped my exercise, but it does not seem to change anything. I even try fasting a few days a week. How can I keep losing if I choose to? By the way, I quit losing on 12.5 and I moved up to the 15, but it made no difference. Okay, great question. So yes, as I think a lot of people have realized, there are a lot of different responses to these medications. But in general, people are going to find a new normal. And again, that doesn't mean that it stopped working. It just means that you found how far the medication is going to take you, because most people are not losing weight forever. So for most people with overweight and obesity, something like tirzepatide is going to give them about 15 to 20% total body weight loss. And a lot of times I will talk to patients in clinic and they will tell me, they're like, this stopped working, what's going on? But if we calculate their total body weight loss, actually they're right on target. So it doesn't mean anything has gone wrong. It's just that they've reached the limit of what the medication can do for them. So basically, like I always tell patients, this is what happens for these medications. They're, exciting, and then they're boring forever. So you have that window of a lot of change, but eventually it's just going to level off into a new normal for that person. So in general, it's not going to change forever. Now, there are, of course, and I've made a lot of videos about this, these people who are like the super responders who lose a lot of weight and then they have to really back off, or they have to really extend the dose because they've lost like way more than weight than they were anticipating, actually more weight than they wanted to lose at some points. So they have to maybe dose every 14 days, every 21 days. Every once in a while, there's a patient like that. And a lot of times in my experience clinically, these tend to be women who are younger, who tend to have really, really good effects to this extent. There's a little bit of literature about this, and I can do a longer video about this if you would like. So let me know in the comments. But yeah, it's hard to predict, but in my experience it tends to be women on the younger side, who, 30s, 40s, who tend to have these more extreme results. But I've also, as a caveat, I've also had patients, in their 50s and 60s who have been super responders. So it's hard to predict, but it's less likely to be people with diabetes. It's less likely to be people who are on a lot of weight promoting medications. So those are the types of things that could slow results, or maybe not give someone that full 15 to 20% that somebody else that they know might have. The question here is, how can I keep losing if I choose to? And I think for anybody who's really reached their new normal on a medication, then we have to think about adding things. So for some people, that's going to be adding another medication, like an oral medication. For some people, that's going to be also making lifestyle changes. So I really can't tell you how many people out there are leaving results on the table with how they're eating and how they're exercising. People who are on these medications who really haven't optimized their eating and their exercise, it's really, you're leaving results on the table. So that's something that if you're at a plateau, that's definitely some place where I think you'll see a lot of benefit. And even if the scale doesn't move for people, like, you're definitely going to feel better. If you're eating how you want to eat and you're exercising how you want to exercise, there's no way you're not going to feel better. And usually your clothing sizes are going to change even if the scale doesn't move that much. For some people, depending on what their BMI is, I will direct them towards bariatric surgery, because that can also be a really helpful tool with the medication. So basically, I always want to let people know it's not that the medication has stopped working. It's just taking them basically as far as it's going to go. Great question. Next question. My question is regarding reverse dieting. I've recently reached my goal weight of 179 pounds after 22 months on 5 and 75 of Zepbound. Congratulations. And I've reached my body composition goals as per my last DEXA scan. 21% body fat, 0.64 pounds visceral fat, awesome, and 130 pounds of lean mass. I'm 68 inches tall. Okay. However, I track my calories and have been eating about 16 calories a day, and my most recent resting metabolic test showed I should have 2,177 calories a day since I have a sedentary lifestyle, except I walk 30 minutes 6 days a week and I lift weights twice a week. Is there any benefit to reverse diet and eat more calories slowly? Or can I just start eating 2,177 calories a day? Thanks. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I think, first of all, congratulations. I don't know if I had a patient like this and they've achieved their goals. I think the real question for them in terms of, should they change their eating is if they like how they're eating. Because if they like how they're eating and they've achieved their goals and, their body fat percentage is where we want it to be. And their, all the metrics are looking good. The other very important part is, how are they feeling? Is it easy to get through the day with how they're eating? And if it is, I wouldn't change anything. If it's not broke, don't fix it. The reason that it's important to make any change, in addition to medication, any change that somebody makes for their lifestyle, it's really important to have the idea that this is also something I'm going to do forever. Because what you don't want is to get to your goal and then be like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I reached the goal. Now I can stop, that extreme eating pattern. I can stop that extreme exercise pattern. But that's what got you there. So if you stop those things, they'll stop working, right? So it's no surprise that a lot of people gain weight back after these extreme patterns because they don't want to keep doing them forever. But that's also what got them the results. So if I have a patient, they've achieved their goals and they like how they're eating, but there's a measurement that says, hey, you should be eating more calories. At this point, usually I'm thinking you've achieved what you wanted to achieve in this way. So if it's working for you, I wouldn't do anything about it. I would keep doing what you're doing because clearly that's what's worked. I don't really like it when people, and this doesn't apply to everybody, but I don't really like to have people eat by the numbers, in terms of calories and macros. And yes, it's important to track your protein. I get that. But in general, I really want people to start to listen more to their internal cues because they get much stronger with this medication. Now, of course, there is going to be that subset of patients that they can't really rely on those cues because their appetite is so suppressed. I'm not talking about those people here. Now, if somebody hates how they're eating on this and it's very difficult for them, that's definitely, they want to have a conversation with their doctor about how to improve that. But I always like people to really see how much they like their day. To me, that's really important because that's what's going to make things sustainable for them. And so if they got to this number, all these metrics, but they really don't like their day, it's a great time to talk to their doctor, talk to a nutritionist about making a more sustainable plan and what that looks like for the long term. But what a great question. Thank you so much. Right, next question. I recently had my labs done to check my A1C after being on tirzepatide for 8 months. I volunteered to the lab tech that I hoped the number would be improved since I've lost 50 pounds on a GLP-1. She warned me to be careful, claiming that GLP-1s are just an appetite suppressant and that I was causing damage to my gut microbiome and to my overall health. I didn't know how to respond since I know weight comes back for the majority of people who stop using them. Are GLP-1s just an appetite suppressant? Great question, and thank you for asking because I think a lot of people get a lot of information from various sources that is not actually true. So GLP-1s are partly an appetite suppressant because they strengthen the message that goes from the stomach to the brain, telling you that you're full. They also work in parts of the brain that regulate the energy balance, so it makes it easier to lose fat. So that fat storage, fat burning gets adjusted, so it's easier to lose weight. And then for a lot of people, it works on the cravings circuitry, the reward circuitry in the brain as well. So they just don't have all that food noise. So the GLP-1s are so successful because they work in so many different ways. So they really work as partially as suppressing appetite by telling you that you're full for longer, but that's not the entirety of the picture. So they have a multifaceted approach, and they often help people eat better. And so if they're eating more fiber, more produce, less processed foods, that's only going to actually improve somebody's microbiome. So what a great question. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching. As always, if you have questions, you can leave them in the comment section down below. If you want to work with me, I do work with people around the world as a life coach to help them with the non-medical aspects of their weight loss as well. So I'll leave all that info here. Thank you so much for watching, and please be well.